With the NHL offseason finally here, we're seeing general managers from around the league be actively moving out cap space to make room for July 1st. This might have set the tone on how much it's going to cost to dump Ilya Mikheyev, and fans are not going to want to hear this. And we get an update on the Canucks going into the NHL Awards with two players possibly coming home with hardware. We'll get into that later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to give a shout out to the 21% of you guys that are subscribed. To the 79% of you guys that aren't, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be all off season in the next season, giving you updates from around the Canucks. So with the hectic schedule coming up, and if you don't want to miss anything to do with the Canucks, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and we'll be here all off season. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Ilya Mikheyev's moving price may be a lot. Now, obviously, you're looking at this and saying, Mark, why do we care about the Detroit Red Wings? Why do we care about their trade? Let me get into that. So the Red Wings did a trade today where they sent a second-round pick in this year's draft, which was originally owned by Tampa, and Jake Wallman to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for future considerations. Now, the first thing you're wondering, what is future considerations? It means absolutely nothing. There hasn't been a time in history where we've seen future considerations lace up the skates and play for a team. So this is a pure cap dump, and we see that it took a second round pick to move on from defenseman Jake Wallman, so Steve Yzerman could clear up space. We see Wallman is making $3.4 million this season and into next season, so a total of $6.8 million of cap over the next two seasons. Now, how does this affect the Canucks? Well, obviously, we have reports, rumors, and his agent, Mikheyev's agent, saying they want to work something out to move Mikheyev into a new team. Now, obviously, Mikheyev did come off an injury. He had a really lackluster season, and into the playoffs, he really couldn't get into that second gear of his game. So this might be another cap dump. Now, with a guy like Wallman taking a second to move on from $3.4 million, this is where things get a little scary for the Canucks fans of the fact that Mikheyev is making $4.75 million this season into next season, and he has a 12-team no-trade list. So the biggest thing while looking at this is the fact that, first off, the Canucks don't have a second-round pick to move on from Mikheyev. We obviously see this year they have no first, no second. They do have a third and a fourth, no fifth, 2 6th, and a 7th. It's already going to be a kind of slow draft day for the Canucks. The third and the fourth round will be super exciting. We might see them even trade into the first round. But if any speculation is true that a guy like Mikheyev may be on the way out, not having these draft capital to move on from a guy already where it took a second to move on from $3.4 million from a guy like Jake Wallman, who didn't have a terrible season. I believe it was 38 points in just about the 70 to 80 games he played. He's an offensive defenseman, and I think he might have scored 12 goals. He's a productive defenseman, but obviously Steve Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings wanted to make space. So if we see a guy like Patrik Allvin want to clear up this $4.5 million to go look at a guy like Tyler Toffoli, Jake Guentzel, anything in between, or someone even better, we will have to see what it's going to take. I know we've reported before that it might take a top-end prospect, it might take a B-tier prospect, maybe it takes a C prospect and a draft pick, but with the Red Wings setting how much it's going to cost, it's going to look bad on the Canucks. I mean, we've seen in recent history where the Toronto Maple Leafs had to move on from a guy like Patrick Marleau, and it took a first-round pick. That was $6.5 million. Obviously, it was a lot earlier into the 20s. So the big thing with this is it was taking up more cap space where the cap is rising. If Mikheyev stays on this team, it's not the end of the world, but I think Allvin and co are going to look at moving on from this so they can be active in free agency. What's your guys' thoughts on this? What prospects would you move out? What would be the dead set price you would attach to a guy like Mikheyev to free up space? Would you trade the first round pick for next year or a second round pick from next year if it means you're guaranteed to bring in a guy like Jake Guentzel, Tyler Toffoli, or someone like that? Let me know down in the comments, but we'll get straight into the second topic today, which is the Canucks Awards going into the awards show. So obviously the first one I want to touch on was Thatcher Demko. Thatcher Demko is up against Sergei Bobrovsky, who just won the Stanley Cup. Good thing those things don't matter because this is a regular season award. And Connor Hellebuyck of the Winnipeg Jets, who was in the playoffs as well. So these three goaltenders are up for the Vezina Trophy. Now, the biggest thing with this is the only thing I'm worried about when looking at this is the fact that Thatcher Demko was dealing with injuries this season, and Bob and a guy like Hellebuyck stayed a little bit more healthy. Obviously, if you're looking at total wins, we see Georgiev is the top guy with 38. Hellebuyck, number 2 with 37. Sergei Bobrovsky with 36. You work down to the sixth amount of wins, 35 from a guy like Thatcher Demko. He played about 10 less games than both Sergei Bobrovsky, Connor Hellebuyck, and Georgiev, even though Georgiev doesn't matter. When you're looking at save percentage, you can see that Thatcher Demko had a .918 save percentage, Sergei Bobrovsky had a .915, and Connor Hellebuyck had a .921 save percentage. This award, I want to say it's going to go to Thatcher Demko, but I think it's going to weigh in either the Connor Hellebuyck voters because of how good of a season he had in the regular season, or there's going to be a lot of people just voting on this because of recency bias with Sergei Bobrovsky obviously just winning the Stanley Cup. But what's your guys' thoughts on this? Obviously, I'd love to see Thatcher Demko winning it, but with the recency bias, with Hellebuyck having the most dominant regular season, where this award's going to be just given out due to that aspect, I do think we're going to see Thatcher Demko come home without a trophy, which is a shame, but I know this guy is going to be in the Vezina conversation once again next season, and if he has a healthy season and the Canucks make the Pacific Division champions once again, and maybe the President's Trophy, we might see him finally win the award. Now, obviously, there is a second guy that's going to be going looking for a trophy, and that is Quinn Hughes. So we see Quinn Hughes up for the James Norris Memorial Trophy for the best defenseman in the NHL against Roman Josi and Cale Makar. Now, obviously, this is a league company. It's going to be hard to edge out a guy like Roman Josi and Cale Makar, but I'm not really a betting man, but I'm going to bet that we're going to see Quinn Hughes come home with a trophy. He's going to be standing next to Rick Tocchet with his Coach of the Year trophy, and they're going to say, hey, we came home with 3 trophies. Let's go for the big trophy next year. But let's look into Quinn Hughes' season. So obviously, point production, we see Quinn Hughes at the top with 92 points, leading all NHL defensemen in the regular season with points. We see Cale Makar just behind him with 90, and Roman Josi with 85 falling behind Makar. Now you look at the plus minus, Quinn Hughes almost doubles everyone on this list, including Cale Makar, Roman Josi. We can see the even strength goals, the power play points. Game-winning goals at 2 is more than Cale Makar, and the time on ice is roughly around the same as everyone else. I think this award is in the books for Quinn Hughes. We've seen in recent memory a guy like Erik Karlsson, who was on the San Jose Sharks and didn't have a good season as a team, won the trophy because he had the most points. We've seen years where Roman Josi led the league in scoring, led the defenseman league in scoring. He won the trophy. Cale Makar, the same thing. The only year I can think of is one time when Tyson Barrie was the leader in scoring, and Mark Giordano at one point won the trophy without being the leader. But I think with the recency bias, with the fact that he did have the most dominant year, best plus minus, the most points, all this leading up to the Canucks making the second round, Game 7, having the team win the Pacific Division Championship. I think this is a lot for Quinn Hughes, but what's your guys' thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. Do you think both guys are going to come home with a trophy? Do you think just one of them? Do you think you would be a little surprised if the Vezina was the only trophy coming home with the Canucks? Let us know down in the comments. But speaking of comments, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, comment of the day. Comment of the day comes from Dwayne Croy. He says, my brother and his grandson went to a game. At the end of the game, they waited to get autographs from the players as they were driving home after the game. Trevor Linden drove by, as many others did. The only one who stopped was Bobby Lou. Stopped, signed an autograph, made some small talk. Congratulations, Roberto. You're a good man and deserve it. And I think all Canucks fans feel the exact same way on this, that Roberto Luongo deserved that cup last night. Obviously, it would have been great seeing him hoist it in a Vancouver jersey. Maybe at one point of his post-playing career, we'll see him with the Canucks. But we see sweet Bobby Lou finally put the trophy above his head. Heartwarm thank you to the Canucks fans. Seeing it was awesome. Obviously, the Canucks winning the season would have been the best, but I think this is the second best thing we could have seen with OEL as well and Forsling. If Jim Benning was watching the video, he'd be like, hey, those are my guys. But seeing Roberto Luongo finally lift the cup was awesome. But if you guys want to go down and leave a comment of your favorite Canucks memory ever, you could be like Dwayne and be featured on the next episode as comment of the day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode that you're not going to want to miss, with this offseason being quite hectic already. Maybe we'll see a trade as soon as I upload this, and there'll be a second video tonight. But I've been your host, Mark Bai. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, and catch you in the next one.